Welcome back to Inside Marketing Design. I'm Charlie, I'm a creative director in tech, and this is a show where I get to learn from folks who work on brand and marketing design at other tech companies. And it's all recorded, so you can learn from them too. Today on the show, I'm speaking to Shakti Hari, who is a design manager at Chargebee. Chargebee is a platform that helps businesses manage subscription billing and take payments. They're a globally distributed company of around 1,200 people, with the majority of them based in India, which is where Shakti is too. He joined the team about a year and a half ago, and you're going to learn a lot from him in this episode about systems and workflows for scaling output with a relatively small design team compared to the size of the overall company. Before we get to that though, I want to say a huge thanks once again to Webflow for sponsoring this season of the show. If you haven't used Webflow yet, you should try it for yourself to feel just how powerful it is to bring your designs to life on the web without having to actually write code. For us designers, Webflow looks and feels very much like a design tool. You add elements to the canvas, you style them, but unlike a lot of other drag and drop website builders, Webflow is writing nice, clean code for you in the background. More than 3.5 million designers and teams are using it to create scalable, beautiful websites, so check it out for yourself at insidemarketingdesign.com/Webflow. But now, let's get into it and take a look inside marketing design at Chargebee. Welcome to the show, Shakti. I'm really excited to have you here and to be learning about marketing design at Chargebee.
Thank you very much, Charlie. I feel great today and tremendously honored to be on the show. It really feels good to be on the show to share our story with everyone. So I really hope the audience finds this session useful.
I'm absolutely sure they will. Let's get into it. Let's give people the lay of the land. Tell us about the marketing design team at Chargebee. Who's on it? How is it structured? Where does it fit into the company?
Chargebee is a huge organization with an exceptionally well-defined marketing team. So there are at least 15 functions or sub-departments within the marketing team, like product marketing, pipeline, content, brand, partnerships, regional marketing, events, etc. So it totally comprises around 75 people right now. Talking about the marketing design in specific, we are a team of 14 people. 8 of us are designers, out of which there's a design manager, a design lead, 3 mid to senior level designers, and there are 2 junior designers. The other 6 actually comprise of developers, out of which there's a front-end development manager, 2 senior developers, and 3 junior to mid-level developers. So the entire team of design and development is headed by a manager who in turn reports to the chief marketing officer. Collectively, we all work together in enabling the marketing team in achieving its goals by creating web pages, event setups, collaterals like brochures, ebooks, ads, etc. And sometimes interesting swag items. It could be running a product release campaign or successfully launching a product or helping the events team host an event, etc. That's how the team is structured.
So lots of different stuff. And within the marketing design team, you're a design manager, right? What is your role and how many people do you manage?
My role as a design manager is first to ensure that the team sticks to its business commitments and enables the marketing functions to achieve the goals. The role actually comes with a handful of quintessential responsibilities like resolving conflicts if they arise, keeping the team motivated, treating the team with respect, providing them the space and the resources they need to grow, being inclusive, etc. But I personally feel that I'm responsible for the growth of the people I oversee personally, which means that my job is to help them develop their skill sets, both hard and soft, as soon as and as strong as possible. I directly manage a team of 4 people, 2 junior designers and 2 mid and senior level designers. And I report to my manager, who is also a designer. He reports to the CMO and is actually responsible for the outcome of the entire team.
And you said that there's a bunch of different, lots of different marketing functions. But am I right in understanding that the marketing design team isn't split by function, that it's like one designer could work on the website, they could work on event stuff, or do you split designers based on marketing function?
There is no particular designer assigned to work on just one marketing function, but we definitely have specific point of contacts who's responsible for all the design incomes and the design request inflows and how we cater and deliver these design requests. And the ratio between the number of designers versus the number of marketing functions actually differ a lot. Since we are just a number of 8 people, we couldn't obviously, sit and just cater to one particular function. But rather, we act as the point of contact. We check in on whoever is working on the design request. We sit and talk with the particular function leads to understand or gain visibility over what might be coming in the next few weeks, and so on. So that is how we operate.
And what marketing functions are you a point of contact for?
Right now, for the past 2 to 3 quarters, I have been the specific point of contact for the pipeline and demand generation team. So I've been acting as the pipe through which the request flows, and I ensure that all the requests from this particular function gets fulfilled, irrespective of who is the designer working on that particular task or that particular project.
Right, so it could be even a designer not on your team who is working on something, but you're still making sure they've got the information.
The team structure doesn't actually have to do anything with the speciality of or the practice of the designer in particular, or it doesn't have to do anything with the function we cater to. So almost everyone in my team is kind of a design generalist with a strength in one particular thing, like illustration or web design. And everyone wants to work on everything, right? So it's a pretty coagulative and cumulative set of tasks that everyone works on.
That makes a lot of sense. Tell me about how you collaborate with other designers within the company, because I'm going to guess that there's more than 8 designers within the whole of Chargebee. So how do you collaborate with those who are working more on the product side, for example?
The Chargebee's design teams are not under a single umbrella, right? So there is a product design team that's spread across the globe. There's a wonderful team of internal communication designers. And then, of course, we have the marketing design team. Though we are not part of the same team, we have mutual respect for each other and we connect on an as needed basis. We connect to share with each other, and we try to let each other know what we are working on and try to get feedback. Though regular connectivity is not guaranteed, we have managed to collaborate successfully. For example, we have been working on a design system for the web lately, right? Since the product designers have experience with design systems and in maintaining them, we share our work and try to get criticism or fresh perspective on what could be improved. In fact, whenever the head of product design flies to India, we meet with the team and exchange ideas. The Chargebee design website we currently have was also done collaboratively. One other example could be how we collaborate with the communication design team, which has experts in motion design and storyboarding, etc. So whenever we need to create explanatory videos for the website, or the Chargebee docs web pages need to be updated, or we need interesting videos done for any of the events, we seek support from the comm design team. That's how we collaborate.
And does most of this collaboration happen through Slack, through some sort of internal chat thing? Do you have regular meetings on the calendar?
We do not have a regular cadence where we connect and discuss these ideas. But like I said, it's done on a on-need basis. So whenever there is a project, and most of the times we just connect to chill and talk with each other.
Nice. I like that. And what about your collaboration with the marketing team? So it seems like, you have these points of contact who the marketing team knows who to speak to for, whatever their work is that they need. But what else? What else goes into collaborating with marketing? Do you have regular meetings with the marketing team? Are they joining crit sessions to give feedback on work the marketing designers are doing?
The marketing team as a whole has a weekly cadence where we connect with the entire team. We have a set agenda set by the marketing ops team.
Let's jump in and talk about the design system that you're working on. How did the need for this arise? What problems is it going to solve, having a design system for the marketing side?
The team has, always been aware that it lacks a master design system for the web since the very beginning. But the pace at which the company grew made it challenging to find time to create a single source of truth. We had just 5 designers and developers back in 2020. But when we had a chance to scale to the team that we are today, we figured that it was high time we create the DLS and automate a few steps involved in the website production. We kind of started the DLS project almost a year ago. The primary objective of the design system is to, of course, create a digital first and consistent, flexible, and importantly, modular system that can help us position as a global technology brand, right? Chargebee currently has around 1,400 plus web pages in our repository in at least 4 different languages.
That's a lot of web pages.
Yeah, I know, right? And all these pages were created and hosted in multiple platforms like Contentful, HubSpot, and in our backend repository. So currently, just 30% of our web pages follow a template or format that can be reused. And the go live time for a web page post the design phase is almost 2 to 4 days now, depending on the complexity or the kind of interaction required or the structure of the page. So the scope of our project is to bring in at least 80% of the web pages into a template based structure using CMS tools and to reduce the go live time by half. So the ultimate goal is to be really fast with the website production by automating as many steps as possible in the process.
Wait, so you're saying that the current time that you're trying to improve on is 2 to 4 days, and you're trying to get it even shorter than that?
Current time for website production we currently have is 2 to 4 days, and we want to cut it by half.
That's amazing goal to like think that you want to be able to produce pages just in 1 to 2 days. Because for a lot of companies, 2 to 4 would be like, faster than fast enough. So I love the ambition. I love that you're doing that.
The DLS that we are working on, when implemented, I believe, will solve a few interesting things for the team. The first thing would be the go live time. The pre-built sections, in design and development ensure rapid go live because substantial time that have been spent in recreating atoms and molecules would be saved. And obviously, time to go live is reduced by half. The cumulative time saved in this publishing web pages collected throughout a year's time is humongous, right? So we want to save the time. And one other thing we want to focus on is the scalability of the pages and to ensure consistency, because when we start dealing with CMS, it gives us the flexibility to set character limitations, use tools like Grammarly to prevent display of erroneous components and, keep the content error free and the design structure intact. That I think is a major friction between designers and, content writers, wherein we have to set a character limit. We have been able to do this with the help of CMS platforms. And one major thing that has been bothering us is the internationalization of the web pages. When the actual process is this, right? When you want to create web pages in, say, German language, right? You need to hire proper translator out of that country. And we need to ensure that it goes through the entire process, check in with the content writers. And there's a long process that's involved. And once it's finally done, the document actually comes back to us, the developers, who need to actually copy paste the entire thing into the code, which is like a redundant process, right? Whereas the developers can actually sit and work on ambitious projects. Implementing this system using CMS standards will help us outsource this content updation process to agencies for internationalization. It's going to save us a lot of time. And of course, when I talk about aspirational projects, it's going to make us more time for that. Marketers can leverage designers better for aspirational multi-quarter projects. And we are currently only a collection of digital assets, but we definitely want to be more, right? So we would have a unified, accessible visual system for the web by the end of it. Or one more outcome we look forward is to, loosen the friction with content. So CMS gives us complete control over to copywriting, right? Iterative copywriting facilitates better copy, and it doesn't have to actually impact the way designers and developers function. So they can do it directly in CMS platforms. And this particular CMS library contains well thought out sections. We have a number of variations for all these things. So choosing the right variation of a section, it's going to help communicate in a better way and set a beautiful page flow. DLS, of course, comes with the responsive design outcomes, right? Most of the brands, at least that are today, especially the SaaS tech brands, they stop optimizing for screen sizes larger than 1440 pixels in width. But we wanted to build for larger screens because almost 27% of our prospects visit from larger screens that are pretty much larger than 1536 pixels. So pages built for small screens look terrible on large screens with white bands on either sides. So we wanted to solve for it, right?
I feel like it was, I don't know, maybe it was like 10 years ago now, but we're all about like, let's think about screens that are smaller and smaller and smaller and optimize for that. And now with a lot of people having these like ultra wide monitors and things like that, especially if we're talking about a tool that's used for people's businesses, it's going to be done on a desktop. And yeah, now we're thinking about going bigger and bigger and bigger again. It's just funny. Now we're having to design for a larger range of screens, aren't we?
Just when you thought people would be, taking these business decisions using mobile screens, they're just switching back to the larger screens.
What's been your process for tackling such a large project at this? And like, I'm asking this kind of selfishly because we're at the start of doing something similar at ConvertKit. We've got a bunch of pages and like you, not many of them are super templated. What's been your process for figuring out like what should go into the system? How can we bring these non-templated pages like into more alignment?
It is definitely a long process. So the first thing we did was to define the scope of the project, which included timeline, split into phases, obviously, and we identified the stakeholders and we split the stakeholders into, a set of people who need to be informed and who need to be making decisions and who need to be active contributors. And we set up various checkpoints for the process. And one good thing that we did was to bring in a project manager, right? It's easy for a designer to assume that we are really good at managing projects as a whole, but it's oftentimes our focus really needs to lie on the actual problem rather than keeping the stakeholders informed. So there's no harm in taking help from someone who's an expert in that field. So we brought in a project manager, and the first thing we did was to create a well-defined questionnaire and fine tune it so that it's not more than 15 questions. And we circulated it to different teams at Chargebee, asking about various things like how they want to position Chargebee as a brand on the website, what works really well in our current website, what needs to be improved or changed or even removed, and what the customers or prospects expect to see more of in the website. Once this is done, we started focusing on CRO, which is like conversion rate optimization. We have a really good CRO specialist in the team. He taught us something called Brian Kugelman's audience influence model. So this model actually helps us understand what influences people in making decisions. So based on this particular study and based on his inputs, we were able to segregate the entire set of web pages into two categories called problem aware and solution aware, depending on where they fall in the marketing funnel, right? And we were able to define the exhaustive list of components that could be in any given web page, clearly set the templates or layouts, and map them to this product feature and solution pages. So that is an excellent solution, if you would ask me.
Tell me more about this, the difference between the problem aware and the solution aware pages. Like, what's an example of a page that might appear in each of those categories?
Imagine you being a patient. Let's say you have a bone problem, right? And you wouldn't know you have a bone problem until the symptoms start showing up. During the initial set of symptoms, it's very hard for a physician, general physician, to probably identify and let you know that this is the actual problem. But unless until you don't know, or unless until you visit the doctor or the physician, you wouldn't be able to actually identify that you have a problem already, let alone start getting treatment for it. This particular phase is called problem aware. There are
So I'm like, my arm hurts. That's the problem.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There are companies that are actually starting up. They might not know that there is actually a pain point that they're going through. They might think that that is actually a norm. But Chargebee, takes it on itself to let people know or educate them that these are the various pain points that might come up. And this is how people are solving for it. And this is how people in your particular field have solved for it. I'm sure pretty much every single marketing designer would know about how a marketing funnel works, right? So you have the top of the funnel, and then you have the middle of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel. Imagine someone at the top to be the problem aware segment. They'll be just roaming around. They'll be trying to identify the pain points. You pull them in, you let them know that these are the pain points that might come up, and you start nurturing them about the industry standards and how companies operate under these pain points. Once you keep nurturing them, right? So they have identified that this particular thing is an actual problem. They'll start looking for solutions to that problem. And that's where the solution aware pages come in. These pages are mostly product feature pages, I would say, where you try to give them as much information as possible to make that final decision.
And how have you found the splitting the pages up like this impacted the design system? Do the problem aware pages have a different set of component needs to the solution aware pages?
Yeah, of course, because when you say you're trying to educate them, you're probably thinking about providing them with as much information as possible about the pain points and how companies have solved for it. And when they gradually come down to the bottom of the funnel, they'll be in a stage where they'll be evaluating your company versus the other products available out there. And that's exactly the point where you need to give them more social proof and tell them, hey, let's say, Amazon Prime is a prospect. They have been using Chargebee for their subscription billing for 2-3 years now. And they are present probably in all places around the globe, like APAC or NAMER or any part of the world, you name it. And Netflix is in the phase where they have identified the pain point and they're looking for solutions. And they want to understand how a streaming platform could benefit out of Chargebee. So that's when the actual solution pages come in. That's when the customer studies come in. So we give them social proof for them to understand and probably evaluate Chargebee against the competitors and make their final decision.
Yeah, and give them the confidence, right, that look, other platforms are using this, so it's a good choice for you too.
Exactly.
Keep telling me more about this process then of tackling this project. It definitely sounds like this split helped to focus things and to, like, you know, create a system around the components. What else? What other tips do you have for me as I tackle ConvertKit's design system?
Taking care of the CRO inputs, we kind of went back to the existing system that we have in place currently, and we kind of started doing an audit on the existing components like sections and getting rid of the duplicate or redundant variations. For example, we might have done like 4 to 5 different variations of a testimonial section. Let's say, for example, one day a designer might just show up and say, hey, let me try out a new thing for this. We go back and do an audit on the existing components and try to remove the redundant variations, right? For example, we might have done like 4 to 5 different variations of testimonials, which we actually do not need, because for a system to exist properly, there should be constraint on the number of variations unless until, it's really important to differentiate it from the other variations, right? So we did that. And then we started doing an audit on the icons, the material illustrations, the photography, and accessibility. When I say the team did audit the icons, the first thing we did was to collect a set of keywords that actually influence the creation of these icons. Our particular use case is website. We have print materials and we have so many things. And we have different styles of icons in the website, to be precise. But to come up with a proper set of icons in one particular style, we needed a set of keywords which could be used across the organization, right? Say, for example, a salesperson wants an icon to be used in a sales deck. There needs to be a system where he can pull that out from the entire repository and use it. We started with the audit, and once this particular step was done, we started defining the viewport breakpoints, right? Optimizing for almost every major breakpoint, including the large screens. In fact, the new design system, we have 8 viewport breakpoints. So, which is pretty much interesting. So we actually sat and experimented and tested how different devices actually showcase the web page in different sizes. That was pretty much fun. And then the development team came up with a suggestion to start using Tailwind UI. For people who do not know what Tailwind UI is, it is an open source pre-coded set of page sections that can be built upon or that can be used to build a secondary website upon. These are basically like the building blocks. We were kind of happy about it because when we validated the inputs from CRO, it was pretty much built on top of Tailwind UI. So it could actually save us a lot of time, and we were able to identify that. Then we started creating the system in Figma, defining the grids, the type scale, setting up the library of icons, illustrations, designing interactions like button or card, hover and clicks, defining the style of product mockups, etc. So creating the system in all viewports, testing them in actual devices, etc. were done. Once this is done, the actual fun starts. So conveying the constraints to marketers, like the character limitations, ensuring that everyone is on the same page, right? And this required us to do a lot of documentation work, which we'll probably talk about in a minute. Then the design to development handover was done, and the developers have started doing it in our repository. And the steps that are going to follow are the development of the same set of components in our CMS platforms, which can be used to build and use templates as a whole. We are also thinking about using a brand book system, a tool like, say, Storybook or something like that, where a single source of truth can be created and updated and used by everyone within the organization. We are looking forward to a rollout very soon. In what we have experienced, in my opinion, the most important part of the entire process is to ensure that everyone involved is kept informed about the design decisions and the process. We made more than a few presentations and detailed documents that let everyone know what the design system is, how it actually affect their workflow, how it is helping them make their lives easier at Chargebee, and what changes they need to prepare themselves for. Because at the end of the day, the designers are just a part of the entire process, and in this particular matter, the marketers are our clients.
Will the marketers be making design choices essentially using the system in the blocks in the CMS? Or will it always be designers deciding this is the blocks in the order that they're going to go on the page, and the marketers are like putting in the content?
That is what makes this project ambitious. Initially, when we were exploring how the CMS platforms function, we were under the assumption, or at least the general assumption, that a template needs to be set, and for it to differ from the actual flow, a new template needs to be used, let alone using the same template for a different page by cloning it. But when we started experimenting with it, our developers were able to find a few gimmicks with which variations of these particular sections can be used. And all these components, let's say the hero banner section, and let's say you have the benefit section, right? The order in which this can be used within a page can be set by the marketers. And we didn't know that before we started experimenting this. It was a huge turn-up. Let me say that, it's an experimentation. It's an ongoing experiment. And we do not clearly know the outcome of it. But what we definitely know is that we will be able to help the marketers do whatever they want with the flow of the web page, right? Because at the end of the day, the way in which a prospect needs to consume the content is set by the marketer, and we are here to help them out. So that's how we want to do it.
I like that. I like that a lot. It sounds a little bit scary to me to leave the design choices up to non-designers, but that is something that I need to work on letting go of myself.
We have had this argument within the team, and so in fact we had a heated argument with one of the senior managers from product marketing. But it was definitely a constructive session where we discussed the pros and cons of it. Finally, we all agreed that when we do the design system, and when we are saving time by giving them the actual control of things, I think it's the respect and trust that we should have in each other. And the way to build it is to let them handle things, right? Just like how they believe you on the design choices, we need to start believing on the other way. And that the marketing design team is taking it on itself to educate. I actually had a chance to set a really long document extensively on the various combinations in which the sections can be used to build a web page. For example, there's a banner and there's a footer, and there are n number of sections in between. It doesn't make sense to put the footer up and put the banner down. And these are all being documented very extensively. One more thing we have thought to have this under control is actually letting the developers do a final check before the page goes live, which means that the marketers wouldn't be able to push the page live even from the CMS platforms where they can rearrange things. When it goes to the developer, if they think something is off the standards of the things that we talk about in the document, it's going to come back. We're going to send people back to reevaluate and restructure things for the page to go live.
I like that. So it's about putting things in place to help the non-designers make good choices, right? Educating them on the order things should be in, and also us as designers making the components flexible enough that it doesn't matter if you put this one first or this one first, that it'll still work in the design either way. That makes a lot of sense. I love that. Well, let's move on and talk about documentation some more, what it looks like and why you prioritize it.
Documentation in general solves a number of things for designers, and I think it's a highly underrated thing by creative individuals. No designer wants to sit and do the actual documentation work. First thing, a well-defined document can help us keep people informed about everything, especially in a fully remote environment, right? We work from India on a regular basis with people from USA or Europe or even Australia. So when every single task should have been completed yesterday, it makes no sense to find a common time slot with the stakeholders to connect with them and convey the ideas or decisions or seek approval. A documentation or a document, though sometimes be a tedious process, right, can help people be on the same page and derive conclusions when you're sleeping on the other side of the world. It's a beautiful thing. A document can also act as a record of context. So over a period of time, any project, loses its potence with the decline of interest of the stakeholders involved. So it is not a sin to lose interest in something because it is something that's hardwired in human beings over thousands of years of time. The sin here would be to forget the progress and the decisions made, which will lead to people starting the conversation from scratch when we touch base again.
Right. When you already made some decisions and already did some research, let's remember what past us did.
One more thing is that, when a new designer joins the team, right, a set of documents that they can read to know about how people deal with projects can help them a lot. This is something that we intend to do by documenting everything that we go through. And it also helps resolve conflicts and instill trust among the stakeholders. It is basically let's say, a manifesto where we openly commit to something and we keep sharing the progress till the task is done. So this helps the designers build credibility over time so that the other functions start trusting the design team. And the most important aspect, I believe, is that documentation, when done over a period of time, can help us locate any patterns in the process that lead to inefficiency. When we actually worked on our latest product release this summer, Though almost every stakeholder was efficient in what they did, we found a few pain points that we could have avoided. And looking back, this has been the same since the last few product release campaigns. So our PMM specific designer jumped in to create a workbook that literally documented the entire process, which can help people gain visibility in the hurdles ahead when they prepare themselves for the next release.
Oh, right. So because you were documenting it as you go and documenting the challenges that you hit, you look back and saw like, wait, we hit these same challenges the last 2 times as well. And so this is a pattern. We should like come up with a permanent solution for this, or at least be aware that we're going to hit these challenges again in future.
Exactly. So this is basically like how people tell you to, develop the habit of reading books. It's easy to find a book and read it when your pain point is discussed about and a solution given in the book, right? If you're already sleeping nicely, it doesn't make any sense to go read a book about sleep.
What does documentation look like at Chargebee? Like, where is it shared? And I'm also curious to know how you set the expectation for people to actually read the documentation, because like we said, like that can be difficult too.
It has been a trial and error process. Initially, we have been using Notion as a documentation tool. Whenever we write case studies about the major projects that we worked on, it generally happens in Notion. And Notion is not a tool that's used across the organization. And for that reasons, we started doing things in Google Docs specifically. Of course, we use the Google Suite, and we have presentations and so many documents linked with each other. Pretty recently, we have been using Confluence as the document, because it also gives us the ability to share it as a blog post or a published article. It gives more structure. It provides us with the same ability to comment and share feedback on the document whenever someone reads it.
I like that thinking of let's put the documentation where people have the most access, where it's going to have the most visibility, because it's already a challenge to get people to read it. So let's not make it even harder by putting it in a tool that they're not going into regularly. What else have you tried for documenting work at Chargebee?
So we had something called GridGap magazine. So if you ask what GridGap is, it is the name that we have given ourselves. So the marketing design team is called GridGap. It came out of nowhere during one of our bi-weekly catch-up where we just chill and talk with each other. People came up with the name and it stuck to us ever since. So we wanted to actually share updates with the marketing team and the entire organization on what's happening with the marketing design team and what we have been learning as a team and as individuals, and how successful we have been, or the things that we have missed, or the things that we have learned over a period of time. Of course, the best possible way to share this would have been a newsletter. But to talk about things elaborately, a newsletter wouldn't do justice. We actually sat and created a long ebook kind of document where we pretty much put everything that we had done over the entire quarter. And we talked about the learnings, and we talked about the misses, and we talked about the future plans. That was the time when we even took up evangelism to be one of our team goals. And we talked about how we are setting up accounts in platforms like Medium, Dribble. We started putting it up, and it was meant to be like really small, and it went up to like a magazine that was like 65 pages in length. And it was something huge that I'm pretty sure no one would be able to find time to go through it to read it completely, right? It was really good. It acted as a clear document on what the design team went through in 3 months. When you actually look at it, it doesn't feel like the work had been done in 3 months. But sometimes, design teams fail to stop, think about what had been done, retrospect on the actual things, retrospect on what could be better, and probably plan for the future, right? We had a chance to do that. But unfortunately, since we were working on so many things at the time, it wasn't circulated, and I wouldn't call it a failure, but it was just put on pause. We're thinking about doing it on a regular basis now, since we have a really considerably larger team now.
So yeah, it was this beautiful like artifact, right, that documented your work, and I'm sure was much more interesting to read through than a simple Google Doc. So how you mentioned at the start, and I'm sure that a lot of designers listening feel this too, that stopping to document, even though we know it's valuable and we know that it's good for us, it's hard to actually do it in practice. How does your team feel about documentation, and any tips, I guess, for making it a part of the process that they can embrace?
I'm sure the team feels exhausted by doing the extensive documentation because, like I said, it is human nature to lose interest in the things that we already gone through, right? But when we actually do the moral algebra and weigh the pros and cons, there's not a single con except the time we spend when writing. Even this time that we talk about is entirely trumped by the enormous amount of time saved in the future by multiple people going through the same process. So when a designer needs to document something, we help each other understand how it might turn helpful in the long run. It's mentioned in the book, what it's called, Eat the Frog. So we try to eat this frog so that we can have a really good time in the future. The only tip I can probably tell people is to just get started bird by bird, right? So writing the first few lines is the most difficult part of the process, and there's nothing that could go wrong because they have gone through it already. They're just documenting it.
Yeah, like you don't need to figure out what to say because it already happened. You're just describing the process. Well, let's move on and talk about goals, which I know is probably something that comes from the marketing team, that you're aligned with them, and your work is trying to help towards achieving marketing goals. Tell me more about that. Are those goals passed down to you? Do you take part in setting them? Do you set them as a team, as individuals? How does that work?
Chargebee has, started adapting the concept of OKRs lately as the model for setting goals and keeping track of them. I'm sure people know what OKRs are, right? It's a wonderful way to set goals and drive people towards achieving them. In fact, I would urge the listeners to read the book Measure What Matters by John Doerr. It's a wonderful book about the OKRs. And coming back to the point, Chargebee's board of directors actually set goals for the organization on a yearly basis based on various factors like market conditions, the rate at which we as a company want to grow, scale, etc. So these goals are then split into quarterly goals. The goals actually trickle down to the CXO level executives, who in turn set objectives for the individual departments that they head, which further trickle down into objectives for the individual functions within the department. In our case, our CMO sets objectives for the marketing team based on the objectives set by our CEO. And then the marketing functions, including the design team, set our objectives for the quarter based on the marketing objectives. This is basically like having a common objective or having a common vision that can act as the North Star. Once we set these objectives, right, we set the key results, which we can measure at regular intervals to keep track of the progress. And the key point is that oftentimes we as marketing designers get lost in various tasks that we do on a day-to-day basis when we start functioning, like a button, basically. So the OKRs actually are like our superpower, which helps us to say no to projects that can be deprioritized.
Right, because if it's not going to help towards the OKR, then it's not going to be worked on.
Yeah, unless it's on the OKR board, it's not as important as it seems to be. This also helps us, clearly define which projects can be done with the help of design agencies and which can be, dealt with in-house. The design team actually checks in on the OKRs every month to see where we stand, and we evaluate what's going well and what's not. The entire marketing team has a quarterly review where we meet for a couple of hours to review and retrospect on what went well and where we could have done better. This is how the general OKR system works for the entire team. As far as the growth of individuals is concerned, we have a system of setting IOKRs or individual OKRs. Now, this is an interesting thing because we as individuals get a chance to basically do a SWOT analysis on ourselves and define the areas where we want to improve. Once this particular analysis is done, the person, with the help of his or her manager, sets up a roadmap for at least like 6 months for up to a year, where we clearly set the objectives and key results for the quarter. There are actually, two challenges associated with this process. The first thing is our ability to set objectives that align with the objectives for the organization. Because at the end of the day, if the company is investing time and resources to help a person grow, it is fair for them to expect the skill sets we develop during this period to be put in use for the good of the team immediately. For example, if a person wants to become a really good web designer, right, his objective can be to become a kick-ass web designer in 2 quarters, let's say. Now, the manager can help the person achieve this goal by providing him with the right resources, having a regular cadence with him to check progress, routing the web design tasks towards this person at work, and sharing feedback on a timely basis. The second challenge that I had in mind to discuss is the extremity in the ambitiousness of the goals we set, right? OKRs are about setting very ambitious goals, yet achievable goals. Now, we do not clearly know how much ambitious is too much ambitious. So the people, with the help of the managers, they need to experiment with this for a couple of months to set realistic expectations for themselves. If the goals are very easy to achieve, right, they're not good enough. And if they're not achievable at all, they don't help you but just tire you up. The thumb rule we have in place is that if you're able to achieve like 60 to 80% of our goals, it's good.
It means you set them at about the right level. And if you achieved 100, 110%, maybe you were too easy on yourself and you should set up like more challenging ones next time. What sort of metrics end up on the key results for the marketing design team, I'm wondering? Is it like the site conversion rate, site speed? I don't know. What metrics are you looking at there?
We have things that vary like from end to end. Let's say, the previous product release was around multi-product go-to-market. When we set the goals, we had a common goal between PMM and the design team, where doing the GTM multi-product would be one of the objectives, and go-to-market by end of this particular quarter would be the objective. And there are various key results associated with it. One of which is successfully doing the product release campaign, and that would be one of the KRs. The metrics are basically segregated into different types based on how they are measured, right? So it can be a done or not done metric. It can be measured in terms of percentage, or it can be measured in terms of number of things that we are committing to, right? Let's say I want to increase the website traffic by N percentage, right? So that is one way of measuring it. You can say I want to bring in 10,000 more customers or prospects to my website. That can be measuring the numbers. Let's say I want to, successfully create 10 new pages by end of the quarter. So that's how we roll. And it pretty much trickles down to every single team and then further to every single person. And to reduce or get rid of redundancy. So when I say redundancy, people actually might get tagged in the key results associated with PMM as well as design as well as marketing, right? So we have a system. We use the tool GTM Hub across the organization. When a goal is set by PMM as a key result, design can be tagged as the owner in that particular board. When I say, let's say, increase brand awareness by N percentage as one of my goals, the brand marketing can be a co-owner in my objective board and can be part of the key result. These are a few things which we had to keep in mind while defining these goals. I personally think it's not an easy thing because on an average, I think every organization that starts implementing OKR will need at least a buffer period of like 1 to 2 years to adapt to the system. It's basically like a love-hate relationship with the OKRs. You love the fact that you have a North Star, but you hate that you have to do regular check-ins. It's a really good system, if you'd ask me.
So it's one that we used at ConvertKit for a time and have kind of gone away from it. And part of me wishes we had stuck with it and like stuck it out, because I think you're right, that 1 to 2 year period to like get really good at setting the OKRs. I don't know if we gave it the time that it needed, to be honest. Tell me more about your philosophy at ChargeBee when it comes to like iteration and improvement, because obviously you're measuring a lot of things. You're a very metrics-driven company, it seems. Yeah, how often are you revisiting projects that you've worked on in the past and like looking at how they perform and deciding to make an improvement to them?
We iterate a lot, if you would ask me. I personally think that our marketing team has built an amazing engine only because they had the ability to rapidly iterate, learn from mistakes, and react by altering the course in a faster way, right? So the team is really significant in this matter and believes in trying fast and failing faster. Though this is not a slogan, this is what the designers do. Every single web page or collateral that we design would have gone through at least a couple of iterations, at least a couple of artboards. The frequency of revisiting projects totally depend on the importance and the priority of the project, right? For example, we do a yearly revisit of our bottom of the funnel pages where we change the visual experience of the set of web pages, right? Because it needs a refresh. It's been almost a year and the pattern with which the people react to it or interact with the page could actually change. So we keep experimenting with it. Whereas there are like projects where we need to iterate much faster. Like in the case of our design system, it required a lot of experimentation with a lot of viewports, and it had to be done in a faster environment. We actually took the time to do it.
I know when we were talking previously that an example of a project that you've iterated on for improvement specifically recently was this email project that you finished an overhaul of recently, or maybe not so recently by the time this episode comes out. Tell me more about that. What is the project and why did you need to iterate on it?
This particular, project was a nurturing campaign through emails. So the Revog and the demand generation team had come up with an email list, which we wanted to share information with and keep nurturing about the pain points. And we started with the problem aware and go towards the solution aware. So this was an interesting campaign because this was targeted at the startup segment in specific. We kind of split the prospects or the people we want to go after into like different segments, out of which startup segment is a really interesting one. So there's an introduction emailer, right, where we talk about who we are as as a company or a brand, and then we actually set different paths for these prospects based on how they interact with the email. There is navigation in the email, there's interaction in the email, and the flow actually is set by the user in what and how they choose. So we kind of identified the use cases, right? It has to be like really solution specific. We want to instill and create the curiosity, and we wanted to set the context or relevance for the users through the emails. The ultimate goal was to educate them so that they start coming into the funnel. We wanted to make them problem aware first, and then the solution awareness and the social proof that Chargebee has, like Forrester reports, the G2 badges that we have got, and the customer stories and case studies and whatnot. So this is how the flow is set, right? And finally, we wanted to bucket them into hot leads and send it to sales. So that was the process behind it. As far as how it went, there were 16 email headers that were specifically designed and optimized for emails because we had a supporting data that most of our emails were opened in mobile devices. Designer to designer, we generally know that we tend to create really thin banners in the top. It looks really good on desktop devices. I hate it when the title or the company logo is actually smaller than the body copy when you look at it on mobile devices, right? And that's very crucial because that is making the very first impact, especially when you are making the first contact. So there were two of the designers, me and another designer called Vinod, who was working on this, and we got the brief, and we actually had a lot of time, so we wanted to have fun. The actual flow that we talked about, the original emailer had like 4 to 5 different set of components that can be interacted with based on which section they click or which title or solution they want to click. It takes them to a set of emails that they're going to get in the next consecutive few days, and each of this flow has like 4 to 5 emails. So let's say we have 5 parts and each of it has like 4 to 5 emails, and there is a final email. So it's kind of like a diamond structure, right? So it starts with what Chargebee is. Hey, do you have problem A? Do you have problem B? And based on how they interact, it's going to nurture them with information required. And it's going to finally, we're going to send them out an email that says Chargebee is providing these solutions and they can opt for it. The marketers specifically wanted different themes for these different verticals, the paths the user chooses. And it's very interesting because, an user can jump from path A to path 3 or C or D right in the middle of it, because each of these individual emails have buttons that can actually set them into different paths at any point of time.
Right. So it had to make sense. You had to be able to mix up the order that they were sent in, and it had to make sense for the design, for the communication. Very flexible system.
Exactly. So we finally optimized for the mobile screens by having really large email headers. In fact, we even had a hard stop thinking if it would be right for the desktop version, but we went ahead with it anyway. It gave us really good results because, we were able to share industry reports, blogs, web guides, and we're able to nurture them with information where they can, click and read the white paper or case study, or even take them to solution or feature pages, right? Let alone the landing page specifically designed for the campaign. We have, let's say, X percentage as our typical click-through rate, right? And via this campaign, we almost got like 50% better responses.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty good. People responded. People were curious about the things, the pain points. It was good.
It's probably because it was so personalized, you think, too, right? That you were giving the reader, the user, exactly what they needed in that moment, rather than making it general. And so that probably led to an increase in the conversion rate. Yeah. What did these emails look like before? So we've heard about like what you iterated them into and like some of the challenges there. What was in place before?
The emails which we had earlier used to be really small in the height that we talk about. And we do not have themes set for different paths or the email journeys, they were optimized, but they are not well optimized for the mobile devices, to be precise. The visual system that we chose to experiment with, it was pretty fun because each of the emails just had a header line, a copy, and a supporting icon, like a spot illustration. There was nothing else. It was really flat, just with an icon indicating what the topic actually is. It was really good.
And so these were the email headers.
These were the email headers, and these were the cards
Nice.
within the emails, and this was the social proof with the CTA, and these were the different parts, and each of this will again have different sections like this where they can click and navigate to a different path, and finally they'll be uh, given a final CTA where they can sign up for the product and start using the freemium model of Chargebee.
You mentioned that you had a while for this project, so it was one that you could really like take the time, develop a cool system, and have fun with. How long was the project from like start with the brief to shipping it?
So the project was well planned. So we had an enormous time to actually sit and experiment this. So we actually got the brief almost a month before the campaign could go live. And we usually get a short span of time considering the different kinds of experiments the marketers want to do. This particular thing was really interesting. So we kept iterating for almost like 3 weeks. We never, set up mood boards for email campaigns. That never happens, right? And we had a chance to do for this particular campaign. So we found inspiration and we decided on the visual system that we want to go with. And we decided on the kind of icons or the spot illustrations that we want to go with. We wanted to use really bright colors because, like I said, this is the first contact.
You want to make a good impression. Maybe we're seeing here that like if you give designers time to experiment, it can lead to really great results. Like you said, with this like 50% increase in the click-throughs. That's awesome. Let's end by talking about some of the main challenges you're facing right now at Chargebee. It could be you as an individual, as a marketing design team. What are you going to be working on solving next?
There's this really good thing that happens in a physical workspace. An entrepreneur from India called Kunal Shah, he calls it learning by osmosis. When we are in office, we tend to learn things that otherwise we wouldn't learn by passively listening to the people around us, right? And generally, designers do this a lot. It is easy for me to look at a video or a Pinterest item that inspires me, but I will not make an effort to share the link with the team to pass it on. The inspiration dies within me. This happens instantaneously when we meet in person, but it doesn't happen at all when we work remotely. So I think that is a major challenge. And I think most of the other challenges are psychological. The marketing team has scaled up really fast in the last few months, and we have been unable to personally connect with everyone in the team, which we used to do a lot. And this is something that I think we'll be working on in the next few months because it's a two-way relationship, right? Until the designers or any other stakeholder make a move and want to know about the other person, it doesn't happen. So I personally think that it is important to build and nurture the rapport with everyone to develop a deep sense of belonging. And a sense of belonging is crucial at a workspace for us to work for the benefit of the brand. Because I've understood in the past few months that a transactional relationship with your peers might work, but a personal connection is required and helpful when it comes to the country I live in specifically. So this is in fact was a feedback I received from my manager, which really helped me create meaningful connections with my colleagues. So I do this a lot. One other thing is that it's easy to feel not motivated when working on a fully remote environment. And I think it's completely normal. We're trying to level up our internal engagement by connecting often. So we're trying to not keep the communication just work related. We try to empathize with our fellow team members by giving them enough time and space. So these are the few challenges that we have been facing, and there's a few ways that we have been trying to come up with.
Makes a lot of sense, especially like we were talking earlier about the trust, right? Having trust in your marketing partners to make the right design choices, to follow the documentation. And all of that comes from this base of like mutual respect and mutual understanding. And so putting time into those personal relationships can help with that too. I like that. And what about you? What are your future plans for growth in your career? Or is there a specific skill set that you're working on building next?
One of my goals is associated with the goal of my team. And as far as my team is concerned, since we would have automated most of the website design processes in the near future, right? We are collectively looking at utilizing the time we'll save to initiate ambitious marketing projects. Personally, since I've transitioned into a managerial role, like it's just been like 10 months, I guess. I'm currently unlearning a lot of things that have helped me in the past, which do not help me anymore. Right? My approach to work has completely changed. I've probably started becoming less competitive and more empathetic. Right? So my success is not my success anymore. My success is defined or directly proportional to the success of my team. My plan is, probably to enable my team to realize, optimize, and utilize their potential. And I think this will happen over a period of time, but no pressure.
Well, okay. Well,
Yeah.
speaking of that then, from your time at ChargeBee so far, I'm curious to hear what is like a project or an impact that you're most proud of. And maybe it's something that actually you did as a team from what I'm hearing here.
When I joined ChargeBee almost like 20 months back, the first project that I took up was to create a ChargeBee learning hub. We can even call it a resource center. So we had our content spread over different platforms like Contentful, HubSpot. Like I said, we wanted a common space where we can list out everything and we can let the users or the website visitors, fine tune, select, search using keywords and whatnot. So we wanted to give them the complete control over how they want to consume the content from the learning hub. So that was my first project, and it was very brief. It kept going on for I believe 6 months, 2 quarters. The team was really supportive though, and it was a really good project because I learned a lot. I came across a few tools, and in fact, we started using a tool called Algolia for our advanced keyword search in the learning hub. And I had a chance to set the architecture, and I had a chance to actually set how people interact with the interface, how they select a particular topic, or how they select the form of the content they want to consume, right? Let's say I'm driving, right? I just want to hear a podcast about ChargeBee as a product, or I'm sitting in a library. I just want to read a blog about a product or its capability. So I should be able to consume the way I want, right? So that was the first project, and it was really good. I think that's one of the projects I'm most proud of. About recent projects, I think the very recent summer product release that we did and the campaign around it, it's the largest and the first multi-product release after we acquired a few other companies. It was pretty neat. The team did an amazing job at completing everything on time and staying due diligent.
Nice.
The team has pretty good standard right now. We have set a good benchmark, and we have a good rapport with the marketing team. So it's been really good.
Nice. It's nice when it all works well, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, thank you so much, Shakti, for everything you've shared in this episode. There's lots of great systems thinking that you have that I know a lot of designers can learn from. So thanks for sharing all about your expertise at ChargeBee.
Hey, thank you very much for having me on the show, Charlie. I had a great time talking with you. Thanks again.
And shout out to the ChargeBee team because we know you listen. A huge thanks to Shakti for everything he shared in this episode. He actually has a podcast of his own, did you know, called Design Combo Podcast. You can check that out at the link in the show notes. And I also loved hearing that he and the team listen to this show and share notes with each other on their takeaways. That is honestly my hope for Inside Marketing Design, is that we can all just learn from each other, get ideas for new processes and systems we could try out with our own teams. So I hope you're doing that too. I would love to hear what your takeaways have been from this episode, from all the others in the season so far. Please feel free to tweet me or tag me on Instagram with your thoughts while you're, also sharing the episode with your design friends. I am at Charlie Prangley on both of those platforms. We are getting close now to the end of the season, just a few episodes left. So I would also really appreciate if you wanted to head over and leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you've been enjoying the show, that would mean a lot to me and really help us get out there and find more listeners. Thanks to Webflow for sponsoring the season. Thanks to you for listening, and I will see you next time.